Am I the a-hole for emasculating my husband and refusing to make my parents apologize for it? Me, a 28-year-old female, and my husband, a 29-year-old male, have been married for 5 years. My husband was a nurse until he told me he wanted to become a doctor. I was fully supportive, and he is now in his first year of medical school. I have been supporting the both of us as he cannot work while in school, but recently found out our rent was being raised by $500 at the end of our contract in April. This was honestly the last straw, as it pushed us past where we were financially comfortable, so I raised the idea of us buying a home. This had been a conversation for years, but my husband had always said we could after he had paid off his school debt from nursing, paid off early 2020. I asked my mother, real estate agent, who told me that with what we'd be paying, it would be better for that money to go towards mortgage repayments and not rent. I brought this all up to my husband, who shut it down almost immediately. He told me our agreement was to wait until he had paid off all his debt. I told him that was for nursing and that he was in school for 6 years, which was hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt, and some doctors don't pay off their debt for 20 plus years. I told him I had been supportive of this career change and by financially supporting the household, but that it was the best financial decision for us, but also relieved the financial burden for me. I brought up the savings we had for our deposit and how we could afford something small and modest within budget, but he told me it was in our interest to use that money to pay off his loans. I asked him if he realized the financial burden this would put on me, but he said it was temporary and eventually he'd make more than me, so it would be even, and I'd agreed to this. My mother called and asked if we were going to look into buying a house, but I told her we weren't and we'd be looking for somewhere cheaper to rent instead. She insisted we at least consider it because it made the most financial sense, and asked if it was because we didn't have a down deposit. I told her that we were probably going to use that to pay off my husband's debt, and he didn't want more debt until he was debt-free from student loans. Days later, my mother and father came for lunch and told us they had news. They offered to gift us the down deposit of a home. I was over the moon and shocked by the offer. Once they left, my husband exploded on me, claiming I emasculated him and made him look bad in front of my parents. I told him I never asked for this, but we should take it as it was a privilege most people don't get and would relieve so much financial burden on me. He refuses to talk to me or my parents until we apologize for shaming/emasculating him, but I refused to. I apologized but told him I wouldn't make my parents, as they'd done nothing wrong. Am I the a-hole?